Hey guys, welcome to NAM episode 24. Sorry we're off to a late start. Things are busy. It's holiday season and all that good stuff. Whoops, I left something unmuted. So let us know that you're here. Send us a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Say hi. If you're watching us on Patreon, if you want to ask follow-up questions, ask them on Patreon. If you ask them on other places like YouTube or Facebook, we probably won't see them during the broadcast, but we will see them later and we'll try to answer them in text. We've got 8 or 10 questions. I think we got getting a couple more late. And so we'll try to get to them all today. As always, if you have anything that comes up, feel free to ask them. Do you have any news to announce before?
I don't think so. We're working on planning our next California trip, which is going to be, we're going to be staying after CNCA in mid-January.
CNCA should be fun. We should be posting a lot during that conference. So
yeah, make sure and if you can go, you should go. So yeah, we're going to be doing a few things the weekend after that. So we're probably going to do a bigger thing on the Sunday, which I think is like the 19th or something. So if you're in Southern California and want to be involved in that, let me know. And we'll be getting out details as soon as we have a location and can figure out exactly what we're doing.
What about the book club?
Nothing new. I'm letting people get working on it. I have not gotten very far in the book yet. So hopefully with the holidays, we can all catch up on that.
Sounds good. Let's see. Starting either in December or in January, but no later than January, I'm going to start releasing challenges on Patreon. And the challenges are going to be developing a specific nosework skill, and it's going to require you to commit to 10 to 20 days of training once a day for about 5 minutes. And when you get to the end of it, if you've done all the days, then you'll earn a prize. And so be excited about that. The first challenge will be, let's see, I have it here, a perfect vehicle pattern challenge. And then I have a crittering challenge that I'm working on as well. If there's a skill you'd like us to develop because what it is a curriculum tailored to develop one skill. Because a lot of times people aren't sure exactly what to practice on a day-to-day basis. And I think challenges are a fun way to approach that. Instead of telling you do this, do this, do this, make it a fun challenge. So if there are skills you'd like to see on those challenges, send it to us and I'll write a 10 to 20 day curriculum. And this isn't a lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. It's a day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So very, very specific, very small, short steps should be doable for everyone to make a lot of progress if you can commit to every day. So be excited about that. I think it's time for our rant then. Your reinforcement sucks. Okay. So I've been having to complain about this a lot recently in classes and workshops and all over the place. I don't know what happens from getting a puppy. Remember when your puppy came home real small and he peed and you're like, oh my gosh, he's peeing, yay, to doing an NW3 trial. And it's like, I'm mad at you that you missed one of the hides, right? I don't know what happens.
Just didn't source that one as fast as I wanted.
Yeah, or yeah, you didn't get it as fast as you could have or you should have or whatever that is. And the same transformation happens in nosework itself. It's fun watching people start in the new class just absolutely flabbergasted that their dog can use their nose to find a hot dog. Going up to NW3 where it's like, good job, find another one. Right? Yeah. It's like, it's amazingly steep curve downward.
Or even how quickly a few months in, people are like, well, that was an easy hide.
Yeah.
Like, was it? Are you sure that was an easy hide?
Yes. So normally with my students that I'm working with week to week to week, every 4 to 6 months, I have to have a nice stern talking to that, hey, your dog's working hard and they're not, the word I want to say, I don't want to say, they're not your employee. You're not paying them for work. They're your friend. Be happy. Celebrate with them. And don't just give them food down their throat like that's what they're doing it for. That's not what they're doing it for. The food's a good bonus, but they're doing it for you. So show them that you appreciate that. And they often can change it in that session. They bring the energy back up. They're super excited. They see the results. They see the dog doing better. They see the dog, a lot of their problems starting to fade away. And then 4 to 6 months later, it's tapered off again. And I have to repeat the cycle. I don't know how to stop this cycle from happening. If you know, let me know in the comments. How do you get your students to do this? How do you prevent it in your own training? How do you prevent getting stingier and stingier? And that's not the same as raising criteria. I'm all for raising criteria, but that's not the same thing as being stingy. And how do you maintain your excitement about nose work? Because it is fun.
Yeah. And I think some of it is having the regular reminders, and maybe, more regular than, oh, I see this is getting crappy. Let's address it again. But, that was a great, way of praising your dog, or look at how well your dog responded to that praise. I have one student who did, and I'm not sure exactly how she figured it out in classes. I need to go back and ask her, but she was finally able to see how much it meant to her dog to get very genuine praise and petting for a number of seconds after she found the hide. And she's been able to maintain that for a couple of years now. But I think it had to really sink in, and she had to see for her own eyes how much it meant to her dog.
And I think some of it too is embarrassment. Like some people are embarrassed to be that genuine in public. And I get that, but at some point you have to get over that if you're going to take dog sports seriously, or anything seriously. If you're going to take anything seriously and become real passionate about it, you're going to have to show that passion, or you're not going to be noticed, right? Otherwise, it's fine if you just want to play at home, right? But if you're going out and competing and you're putting yourself out there, you owe it to your dog to not be a different person at home than you are in competition. Right. That's what I'm getting at. It's like you're being a two people, and to your dog, that's upsetting.
I also think class culture can really influence each other.
Yeah.
Class is where you have one or two people that are just great at celebrating with their dogs. It's infectious, and people feel freed up to be that effusive. And then classes that tend to be really quiet, everybody tends to be really quiet. So I think pushing, class culture in that direction can make a big difference too.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Where did my mouse go? Are we ready for questions?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see what we have as question number 1. One of my students has a deaf dog that she is training in nose work. Not the same dog she's bringing to class. Okay, that's a separate point. Any suggestions for the specific to nose work training with a deaf dog? Good question. So my experience with dogs that are deaf, it has been that they perform better than other dogs. They don't have that. Actually, the marker and the praise actually the timing gets in the way and trains things that we didn't intend to. And so with the loss of the hearing, they can actually focus more on the scent being the marker itself, which is a huge advantage. They tend to check in with their owners less. You'd think they'd check in more, but they don't. I think we think they check in because they need us, when in reality, they check in because we're kind of making them. We're kind of nagging them sound, with touch, with the leash, with our eyes, with our body language. We're nagging them constantly, and then we think, oh, they need our help. It's like, I think you need them more than they need you personally. But, something like that.
Yeah. Well, especially unless it's a really, a dog that hasn't gotten out enough and learned how to acclimate in new environments.
But even those dogs do better when the handlers get up off them.
Oh, yes, of course. And we've also had dogs that started out with hearing and then lost their hearing over time. And we saw them improve from when they had hearing to when they didn't, some pretty dramatically.
There's nothing more damning to the handler than your dog starts improving when they can't hear you or see you anymore. Like they start doing better. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that's
I think
really
especially
bad.
With the hearing, I think losing the hearing is more of a not that it's a positive, but it does more good for your nose work training than losing your sight. I don't think it really does.
There's a dog that I got to train in Canada recently, and this dog, it was a little puggle thing, and it was deaf and blind and had brain trauma. I can't remember if it was like severely, like almost killed as a puppy by its mom or by a person. I can't remember what happened, but it had serious trauma, like missing eyes, everything.
You can tell by looking at it, it's
Yeah.
not put together correctly.
That dog was the most phenomenal nose work dog. Would never quit working, just like running through the search area as fast as he could without seeing and hearing. Absolutely amazing to watch. So yeah, I think they have an advantage. Don't treat them like they don't, like they're less, because they're not. And help the handler see that too, because a lot of times the owners have this sense of that their dog has issues and needs to be helped along, and in actuality they often don't.
Yeah, and there are obviously things that are easy to do differently with a deaf dog, like a tactile search command. I've known people who did like a double tap on the hip or something like that.
Yeah.
So the dog knows when they're released to search.
And here's the thing about that, okay? Because tactile signals are very important if you're going to use a deaf dog. However, this advantage of the dog not paying attention to the handler might get lost if you teach them how to nag their dog, because now they have a thing to nag their dog, because this will work, right? I can get your attention by poking you. If you let them believe that the search command works, then maybe they'll stay out of their dog's way, but it might be more valuable to teach them this is a way you can communicate with your dog. So, but yeah, all of the dogs that we've had that were deaf, we told them to give a tactile command, both for finding odor and leaving odor.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably for some dogs it'd be enough to just slip the leash or the, a collar or whatever over their head and just release the leash. But, it's probably a little clearer to have a direct command.
Yeah. Anything
All
more
right.
about that?
I don't think so. Oh, one thing, a follow up on the
Reinforcement
the rant
sucking
was that Linda says is muscle memory, which is definitely true.
Yeah.
We do the habits that we build. So absolutely making that a part of who we are, so that we're most likely to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay, next. Do you use the nosework halter, I think she means harness, or collar when you're working with nosework odor? Do you only use it when you're using nosework odor? That's a good question. I personally do. I have my students often start with it because they need to practice putting it on and off. That's something that is valuable. But my more advanced students, people who are starting a second dog, who they're familiar, they know what the routine is going to be when they compete, right? With my own dogs, I introduce their nosework equipment when we transition to odor.
That's often what our students end up doing, because they spend, the first time figuring out what equipment they are comfortable with using.
Right. A lot of people don't start with equipment. Like they buy it from us, or they learn about changes of equipment from us. But I'm not 100% sure if it makes a difference, because Lumi wasn't trained that way. Or was she?
No, we did it
actually
pretty early.
We changed the equipment with Lumi way later, I think, because we bought them from that 2-hound.
No, they were on harnesses at first.
They were on harnesses? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Horrifying.
Yeah, Cinnamon was on a harness, and then I switched her to a collar because the harness was driving me crazy.
Fascinating.
Yeah, no, we had to change equipment really early.
Okay. So yeah.
But some people don't. Some people do and aren't convinced that it means anything to their dog. Although then I've had people come back to me after we had a conversation saying, "Oh, you know what? I put it on at the car and I saw that my dog wanted to work the whole, 10 minutes we had before we got to search." So I think it makes a difference. And like, we do a lot of scatter feeding, which we've talked about here a lot, and we definitely are not putting a change of equipment on our dogs for that. That is them getting to just scavenge for their food. It really has nothing to do with nose work or what I necessarily even want my dog doing when they're doing nose work.
In my opinion, this is the important thing of the nose work equipment. One is that when that equipment comes on, the dog expects that they're going to use their nose to find something. And two, that they're going to expect that they're not going to be allowed to potty. As long as those two conditions are true, then I think you could use it as early as you want. You could use it pre-odor, after odor, way after odor. It's fine.
And I'm not
the big mistake I see people making is taking their dog out to potty on their search equipment. Huge mistake.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was more to this question originally, or exactly which part of the change of equipment the person was wondering about. But yeah, like you were just saying, I think one of the biggest things is don't get to class, put it on your dog in the car, have them wear it for the whole hour and a half you're at class.
Yeah.
Keep it to when you go into search and take it off when you leave so that it really means something. And then I loosen that up when I'm at trial. Like if I'm going to 2 searches back to back that have a little walk in between, I'm not necessarily taking it off and putting it back on. I may, sometimes I may not, but especially when I'm letting the dog know what it means and when I don't want them to potty. So if I'm walking from search to search, they are not allowed to potty during that. That's really important that they're not wearing it. Because I do think that one of the biggest benefits of it is don't potty when you're wearing this.
Yeah.
And if you contaminate it by being sloppy, then that's a lot harder of a concept to maintain.
Yeah. So I'm going to, we got some follow-up questions. So one is, so no harness when searching for treats and no essential oils, or do they need to distinguish the difference? So just in case it's not clear, we don't use harnesses. We use special collars for searching.
We know a lot of you do use harnesses.
Yeah, and that's fine. There's a pro and con discussion we can have about that, but it's not that big of a deal. So I personally introduce the collar, the Nosework collar, when I introduce odor. It's okay to introduce it earlier than that. I don't think that's a problem. I don't think if you do both, if you do dog searching for odor and dog searching for food, like you're tired and you can't put out odor, so you just set food out as hides for the dogs to find, then I would recommend not putting the harness on or the collar on for that, only using it for odor, and not even using your search command, having a different command like treat time or something. I don't care. Something that is separate from Nosework. This is not a Nosework search. This is just go find food, because we don't want to confuse the dog when it comes to food distractions. Like,
once they're on odor.
Are we looking for food or are we looking for odor? Which is it?
Yeah, and I also don't necessarily even want my dog in that kind of scavenging mindset that they're going to be in. Like if I'm just throwing food around, I think it's a different mindset than hunting for a hide.
Definitely. Is there another follow-up question there? I felt like.
Let me see.
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh wait, maybe not. Could the same be said about not being allowed to sniff and critter when the harness is on? No pottying, no sniffing outside the search. That's a tough question. Not to mention, if you've worked with me about potting and crittering, you know that I'm a big fan of letting the dog make a decision. So when I say the dog's not allowed to potty in the harness, I'm not saying you should stop them from pottying. What I'm saying is
there are consequences.
There are consequences for pottying. Exactly. That's exactly right. So I wouldn't put my Nosework collar on and then ask my dog to look for a rat, right? So that kind of crittering I'd be against. And that's relevant to me because my dogs do actually hunt for animals. So during the search, if your dog has their harness on and they're sniffing critter or they're sniffing pee, correct at your own risk. I won't do it because I might be correcting odor. So I just CO'd 2 days of trial in New York, and I saw a lot of people correct their dogs on odor and because they thought it was pee. So I think if you get comfortable doing this, then you really run the risk of doing it. Now, some people can really tell when their dog's doing it, but I don't trust myself.
That being said, I don't let my dog hang out in potty areas just like crittering and soaking up potty smell.
Collar or not.
Yeah, go potty. You know, when I asked you to potty, we're not here to read pee mail, which I don't think is a healthy thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move my dog off of that kind of behavior outside of Nosework.
Mm-hmm.
And then inside of Nosework, I do expect my dog to have a focus for searching and odor. And so if they are getting distracted regularly by crittering and other things, then that's something I want to address with their drive in training.
Yes.
Because I do want a good attitude, a high level of excitement and hunting.
Yeah.
When they have that collar.
Absolutely. And that's often why I have people working on marking and crittering start with containers in potty areas. It's because it's easier to tell. If I just put treats in the grass, it's hard to tell, is the dog sniffing pee or are they sniffing the treats? But if I put those treats in a bucket, then you know if they're checking buckets. If they're sniffing the grass, it probably doesn't have anything to do with Nosework. So anyways, yeah, That's a good question. And some of that gets gray and gets into personal preference. So you'll have to kind of decide that.
One other follow-up. If nose work is the only sport one does and your dog's potty on cue, does it really matter about equipment?
Yes, it does. Because the search collar should be a command to not potty. I want it to be a cue that lets them know they're searching. And
I think she's saying if you know you can take your dog, potty them, and they do it, do you really need equipment that also says don't potty?
Yes. Yeah, because I want them to know what the search collar means. It does not. If it means potty and search because they wear it all day long, then let me make it another point. If your dog wears their search collar when they're not searching, it is not a search collar. A search collar is a collar you wear when you're searching. And if you wear it any other time, you've diluted that meaning.
Right. But I think, and I don't know if this is true of her.
Not diluted.
But there are some people who just don't believe in having a change of equipment at all.
Sure. Yeah. And that's fine because then you're saying the other context cues are big enough. My search command, my treat pouch, my start line routine is enough. And that's fine. I find that having the extra piece of equipment actually makes a big difference. And so
I've seen it make a huge difference for dogs. But there are some dogs that are just easier in general than others. And I also think it can make a big difference for the handler of putting yourself in the mindset of working together with your dog, especially because of how different nose work is than a lot of other sports where you're really letting the dog take the lead. And so I think even, also from a mental management point of view, I think it's part of a routine that's good for both the dog and the handler. Yeah.
If your dog has a pottying or more realistically a marking problem, then a change of equipment is a essential piece of the puzzle to fixing that. So if you don't have a marking problem, then you probably don't need to worry about this as much. But a lot of people do. And so, yeah.
All right.
Good. Okay.
Next.
Question number 3. Do you use the search cue regardless of whether it's nose work, odor, or food? So a similar vein of the question. I do. I use my search cue from the beginning. And now it's important to understand what the search cue means for me. My search cue means to begin hunting, right? And the hunting has been provoked through excited amping up of the dog, right? So it doesn't mean indicate. It doesn't mean find odor. It just means start hunting.
And also, I'm now not going to hold you back from hunting anymore.
Yeah. If it means indicate the odor, then there's a problem when it's a blank search, right? But that's not what it means for my dogs. We do a lot of blank searches. Search just means start hunting, and they just keep hunting until I drag them away. Then once they're on odor, I won't use that search command anymore if I'm going to send them to find food or something else like a rat or a bird or anything like that, or their toy.
Or if you're doing AKC and you're doing
handler scent discrimination.
Yeah, handler discrimination. I think it's super worthwhile to have a separate command for that.
Yeah. Because the hunt is somewhat related to what they're hunting for. Now, if you do nose work, NECSW style, so to speak, then the transition from food to odor is very smooth. It's not jarring like the operantly trained obedience command of indicate the odor is. So that's where I think if you're training it operantly with a final response first methodology, then you probably shouldn't have the search command until there's odor involved. But if you're doing it the NACSW way, it's going to blend so smoothly that your dog's not even going to know what happened, and they're going to be looking for odor without even realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
You have anything to add about that? No, that's a really straightforward question. Good.
Maybe until we get a follow-up.
Yeah. Okay. This is an easy one. Did you get the metal pails / buckets online?
This is one of our most frequently asked questions. I think we need an FAQ section.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple disclaimers I want to make. This will be kind of a mini rant. Okay.
That's what you guys get for saying you liked rants.
Yeah. Did they say that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
someone
fun.
said it last time.
So there's a lot. If we were smarter, we would capitalize on this. But there are a lot of dog trainers out there who make a ton of money selling people on specialized equipment.
Yeah, we would say these are very special,
Yes.
appropriately sized buckets. You can
RSG
only get
buckets.
from us.
Yep. They have to be the right size, the right shape, the right color, whatever. Whatever makes people believe it. It's made out of the right metal so that it'll hold odor in, or that'll let odor escape, whichever you think is more important. So yeah. So there's nothing special about the buckets and pails we use. The reason we started using buckets was because we were in a windy area and boxes blew away. Okay. Now, there was an extra several advantages to using buckets we found later. One was that some dogs were afraid of them, and we got them over a fear really early on, which was a powerful experience for both the handlers and the dogs. We also found that we could make mistakes on the buckets that didn't transfer over to boxes, where if you start on boxes, it's easier to develop scratching behaviors.
Yeah, things that transition to your ORT and beyond that you didn't want.
But still, the buckets themselves aren't required for that. You could use plastic bins, although those are used in trial more often, but food bowls, you could use egg cartons, you could use anything like that, flower pots.
And also, a lot of people have done various training in boxes.
Yes.
Targeting and a bunch of things, and the dogs were like, oh, can I offer this? Can I offer that? Certain types of dogs.
Sure.
And so it also helped us move them into understanding of nose work instead of just offering behaviors to their handler.
I can't remember what trainer it was, but is a really maybe Pat Miller, maybe Patricia McConnell. I think it was Patricia McConnell. But she told this story of she was on stage working with an aggressive dog, and he started off on this leash that she describes as being fully appropriate for an elephant. And so she's working with this dog. It's going really well. And she's transitioning him to lighter and lighter leashes so that she can show that she can control the dog without needing this gigantic rope attached to the dog. And so she finally worked her way down to the thinnest leash she could find. The only one she had was in her training bag. And it was an old conformation leash that was leather with some knots in it. Just had knots for whatever reason. So she used that and demoed, and the dog made this amazing progress with the aggression. The whole crowd was astonished. And so she asked if there were any questions. Someone raised their hand, and she asked, so, okay, what's your question? He says, how far apart do the knots have to be in the leash? He's like, oh. So I know I'm hammering this point home. There's no magic to nose work in terms of equipment or specialized anything like that. I think a lot of those specialized equipments are all gimmicky. I know I'm going to get into some trouble saying that. I'm not going to say which objects in particular.
There are a bunch of them.
All of them are gimmicky. Now, they can be fun, but they're all gimmicky. All you need is no odor. But anyways, you can get them at Lowe's in the paint section if you want them.
And I'm sure you can get them online too. We've never bought them online. We always just go to Lowe's.
Do we have a bucket in here? We can show them. No, I don't think we do. We often have buckets all over the place. Wait, we might.
They've also just come out with a smaller one, which I would recommend not getting the smaller one because most of your dog's faces won't fit in it. So if you see two options, get the little bit bigger ones. And they're near the regular paint cans that have, the lids that you see in trials and stuff. But don't get those. It's really hard to get your
holding all of my zip drives in my computer room. They have multiple uses. You store all your nose work equipment in them, and then you run them. And they only cost $30 each. You buy them from our website.
Unopened doggy toothbrush.
There you go.
Yeah. But if you find similar ones you think you'd like, get whatever you want.
No, you have to buy them from us. See,
we're not selling them.
We're so bad at business, right? Oh, well, we'll get it at some point. Okay, so someone's corrected me. The trainer was Suzanne Clothier,
okay.
Which makes sense. She's one of my favorite trainers ever. So, yep, absolutely. Makes sense. Okay, next question. I've been corrected twice for the same thing. So yes, correction put out. It was Suzanne Clothier. Okay, I know a litter of puppies that are now 6 weeks old and want to give the puppies a good start in nose work. Is that even advisable? Would it be better to continue to expose the pup to all kinds of things so that they have social coping skills, or could they try to build nose work skills in a fun way too? Good question. I think to start out with is that, in my opinion, nose work would be the perfect puppy class. what nose work is exposing the dog to new things, or it should be. It should be showing them new hides, getting them over confidence issues, and investigating the world nose first instead of eyes first, which can cause fear reactions and things like that. All of my foundation exercises can be done with puppies. Some of you may have seen in the Facebook group, we did the running drill with an 8-week-old puppy. That was the second day it's been home. All of them are safe for puppies and great exposure to environmental things. So not only do I think doing nose work with puppies would be good for them doing nose work later, I think it would be good puppy socialization in general.
But I think you have to, like you said, come at it with a really appropriate mindset about it, that it's about letting the puppy learn about the world and pick up some treats along the way if they want to, not putting any pressure on them, letting them solve any problems in their own time, not thinking about competition. You're not thinking about putting them even on odor. You're just thinking about, what are fun, safe ways for me to stretch what this puppy can do, give them exposure to new areas.
Yeah. There has to be no expectations. Just look at the agility world, because you'll see this where people put too much stock in it, and they also put all this pressure on the puppies to be able to do certain things at a young age, or they're not going to be a good agility dog. If that were true, then look how many dogs in agility are from shelters, had no socialization. It doesn't make sense that socialization is the key feature of good agility dogs. It's not. Structure and temperament are. And the same is true in nose work. Structure and temperament. If your dog has good structure, they're going to be better at nose work, right? If they have a good temperament, they're going to be better at nose work. It's that simple. Early socialization is almost completely negligible, in my opinion.
Well, then don't let them get fat.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important to give puppies some amount of exposure, to new places. But in a super low pressure way. I don't want to take them into Lowe's and have them, meet 20 people that are hovering over them and potentially scaring them. Maybe I let them meet a couple people, but maybe I, let them go down an aisle, and even just walking down the aisle would be fine. But if you want to do, nose work that way too. Icy's breeder did some novel odor stuff that some breeders are doing now, where they put just different smelly things in the whelping box to let the puppies check them out. But they weren't supposed to respond to the odors in any way. They were just there to be kind of catching their interest. And that is the absolute max I would think of doing in terms of exposing the puppies to odors. And that, those weren't all or necessarily any nose work odors. But I don't want to, accidentally create really, really strong responses to odors that I'm going to maybe not be happy with the response I created later.
Yeah, I think, honestly, for me, I don't think you can do better than what nature does with things. So I think the problem we have with our with a lot of socialization is that it's so unnatural that I know this is a not popular position. Puppies should be raised outside. There's a lot of exposure to interesting smells, sights, and sounds, and heat and cold, and not being comfortable all the time, but being able to escape discomfort to comfort. So all of that, I think, are important experiences for puppies. I think that certain types of exposure is really not important. Like, I don't think exposure to different people is important. Different dogs is important. My dogs don't go to puppy class. They don't get exposed like that. And personally, of all the dogs we have here,
the one who did go to puppy class is a screwed up mess.
Yeah, the one who did the most socialization, and I wouldn't say that she was over socialized. I think we kind of did the book by the book thing pretty appropriately. Her exposure was pretty good.
Yeah, she didn't have any scary interactions with people.
I think her temperament was just terrible. And so it just came out about 6 months. She just started biting people. And she was exposed to all the people in the world. And the other 4 dogs, no, except for Icy. The 3 of the dogs we have had like 0 socialization basically before 8 weeks and very little after. And they turned out just fine. And I think it has, like, temperament is the baseline, and socialization is almost nothing.
A very good breeder who did an appropriate amount of stuff with them, not too much. And she also is, and she's also a breeder who cares about breeding for temperament. So, hard to say on the scale there, but also very good with people and dogs.
Yeah.
So,
and that goes for picking
challenging.
nosework dogs as well. If you're picking a nosework dog, pick based on good temperament. Don't pick a dog that you think is drivey trying to get a great nosework dog. That's not how you get a great nosework dog. A lot of the dogs who are really great at nosework, people wouldn't even describe as having high drive. And a lot of times you can just go to nosework classes and workshops and look at all the high drive dogs who are having tons of trouble at the low levels, because the dog isn't actually high drive, it's high arousal. And we've confused that. And maybe they take more dedicated training to get the most out of them. And that's harder to do. Whereas with a dog with less arousal, they can do it.
And find a dog that wants to work with you. And that comes down to temperament and sociability. If they want to work with you and want to do what you want to do, you guys are going to have a blast at nosework. If they have a bunch of their own ideas about what they should be doing, because if they were bred, with a really strong instinct for something in particular, you're probably going to have more trouble with them, which is what the working dogs tend to be.
Yes. Absolutely.
Are you recovered?
I think I am. Yeah. Excuse me. I almost died, so... And she didn't come to my rescue at all.
I totally did. I took over what
you took over. She took over. The show must go on, even if I pass out dead here. Okay. Question 6. Is there a scientific study or documentation that discusses the effect on the dog's ability to sniff when their breathing is restricted? For example, from allowing the dog to pull while wearing a collar. Interesting question. To my knowledge, there aren't any studies about this. I don't think anybody has even thought to ask the question scientifically, as far as I know. People have been more interested in what breeds have breathing problems that prevent them from doing nose work, and what foods affect scenting ability and what medications affect scenting ability. But a lot of dogs who really do nose work, right? Because remember that the sport of nose work is very new. So if you've got a hunting dog, if you've got a patrol dog, if you've got all these things, a lot of these dogs are being worked off leash, almost exclusively, with the exception of like working a dog on a freeway, on a vehicle or something. And
then I think, they're taking pains not to restrict their.
I don't think it matters. Honestly, the dog is way above capable of doing these problems.
Right,
even if you were strangling them, like literally a noose around their head, strangling them, I bet you that dog would still be able to catch the odor, source the odor, and indicate.
They are insane.
They're completely insane. And the amounts of odor in some of these drug cases is massive. So it's like the dog's already alerting from inside the cop car, right? I would be somewhat skeptical of finding results too, because we know dogs can work through a lot of conditions. Like nose work has shown that all sorts of varieties of conditions dogs can still work through. We're not sure why there are trends in failure, or certain trends exist. Like why at a trial all dogs miss a hide. Sometimes we can't figure out why, but I don't think we can have like equipment even makes the top of the list, anywhere near the top of the list.
No, unless it's something like bulky harnesses getting caught if it's a narrow passageway to get to a hide. But even then you would, you could, depending on the hide, get responses far enough out that you'd probably be okay.
Or vests on really hot days. Like those increase the dog's heat, which reduces their ability to perform under stress. And I would say probably similar in the cold, if the dog's not conditioned to cold, at least. If they're not wearing appropriate equipment to handle the cold, then that'll affect them too.
But we do make a point and teach our students to, not have tight leashes when their dog is working. We want the dog to be able to work as freely as possible.
Except when we're telling them to pull the leash intentionally.
Right. Yeah, when we're proofing.
Which is fairly often.
But like in trial, you're not walking around with the dog straining at the end of the leash. I don't think that would be effective for a number of reasons. I mean, maybe if you have an insane dog.
You know,
But-
I wouldn't be surprised if it was an inverted correlation too, that like pulling on the collar blocks off the mouth but increases sniffing because they start breathing through their nose or something. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened, because when we put pressure on the leash, it seems like the dogs search better actually. And it's not an uncommon nose work advice for especially really fast dogs to increase the leash pressure to get them focused. I wonder if there isn't some link, but anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
a study would be fascinating.
It would be.
You know, you have the whole bell curve of dogs that would really shut down and dogs that would really pull into that and get a much, more focused, strong response to.
Yeah, and what kind of collar are we talking about? Are we talking about a fur saver? Are we talking about a thin normal collar, a thick martingale? I mean, like that would have to all be isolated. The study would have to be massive.
Mm-hmm.
And then harnesses, and then what kinds of harnesses are allowed, not allowed. What about dogs working on head halters? I've seen dogs working nose work on head halters. It's horrifying to me. But they do, and they work it out somehow. Yeah. I don't know how.
I can't even remember the last time I saw that.
Yeah. It's been a while, but I've seen it. Okay. Next question. I have a 2.5-year-old border collie who's admittedly a bit of a mama's boy. He struggles at practice with being quiet in his crate, especially before his run. I know Drive and Desire are good, but I need him to be less vocal, especially when I take my older dog out to go out for her run. Help. We're here to help. Okay, so first things first. Actually, what we just talked about in terms of drive and arousal. Arousal is not the same thing as drive. There's nothing about drive building and enthusiasm that means a dog has to be vocal. I don't like a dog who's screaming, personally. And the best dogs that I know of, the most driven dogs, are absolutely silent.
Yeah, and getting worked up like that does not put you in a good headspace for working either.
No, it doesn't. So I think don't worry about this, because the barking in the crate has nothing to do with enthusiasm for nose work, right? It's a training issue. The barking works, and he thinks he's going to get out or get some kind of reinforcement for barking, or it's a breed thing, and the dog is barks like that, and it's self-reinforcing. Okay, so
and BCs aren't always the quietest when they want.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a breed thing, right? So there's a couple things that I did with my dogs when we were doing herding, because they would scream sometimes because they wanted to herd so badly. One thing is that I would load them up in a car sometimes, take them to class, and never take them out. I know that's painful for a lot of people. They want to do that. But if you're really into nose work, go and watch a class, throw your dogs in the car, put them in the crate, load them up, and then not take them out at all. Watch the class, drive home. Go volunteer for a trial and leave them in the car, right? If that's allowed in your area, talk to the host first. Don't just show up with your dogs. Find opportunities to load up everything, like we're going to do nose work, and then don't, so that they can okay, sometimes we're not doing nose work, and they can relax.
When you say then take the next step of classes where only the older girl gets to work.
Oh, absolutely.
He doesn't get to work at all.
Yeah, definitely. That's very important. And more crate time at home. Teach your dog, or if they're in a crate in the car. If they're not in a crate in the car, how are they stored in the car? Are they tethered? Are they in a seatbelt? In which case, you need to train them how to decompress on that at home. So my dogs are in crates in the car, so we practice that at home. Crate time, they learn how, when they go into the crate, they fall asleep almost immediately. Right? Our dogs are in their crates right now. They're pretty quiet. There was only one time where a dog was scratching around his crate. He does that. I think he just wants a blanket because he's scratching like he's trying to dig at something. I don't know. Anyways.
He eats stuff he's not allowed right now.
Yes.
For those of you who
yeah, he's not allowed a blanket. So they need to learn this as a skill. And my favorite way to teach it is take your dog out to public, tie him out, or step on the leash, and just read a book, eat lunch, sit there for a couple hours until the dog falls asleep. Use a peanut butter bone. So take a bone or a Kong, stuff it with peanut butter or something that your dog can eat that's sticky and wet, freeze it, give it to them, and just wait for them to shut up for a while. Okay, and it's going to take a long time, and you have to be patient and ignore it. Eventually, the dog will get used to this routine and will pretty much fall asleep instantly when you do this. Then you just need to transfer it to new locations, and then you need to teach the dog to come up for work and then down for the crate. My hunting dog now, and all of my nose work dogs already do this, but I thought hunting would be harder because it's so high drive. Same with herding. But he knows when I pull him out of that crate, he's like on, ready to work. He goes back to his crate. He immediately falls asleep.
And, this is hard work they're doing. And,
Yes.
Having a way for them to decompress and get some rest will make your trials a lot more successful. I've known a lot of people who they do beautifully in the morning and they crash and burn in the afternoon because their dog has not learned how to rest in the crate. So they're working themselves up there. Maybe they're standing all day, they're looking around, panting, barking, whatever it is, and they're not resting. And, to me, it's really important that my dog take the time between searches to rest. With my first nose work dog, she wasn't good at that. She did a lot of boredom barking, but she mostly did it when she could see me.
Mhm.
So I covered her crate, I walked out of earshot, and let her take her breaks. And it made a really big difference for her. With other dogs, I haven't had to go that extreme because I taught them better how to rest in the crate and be calm in the crate. But, do what you need to do to help them. And they'll be happier and more successful at trial. And you'll be happier because you're not having to listen to them bark.
And a lot of times, like dog trainers' dogs learn this because they're sitting in the car so much or sitting in a crate so much because they're just waiting while you're teaching class all day long. And that's how our dogs learn. The other thing that's really valuable that'll help is long road trips. And doing 3, 4 day, 5 day road trips where you're driving, dogs in the car in a crate the whole time, go to a hotel room, they get a quick walk, and now it's bedtime again. It's really frustrating at first, but the dogs learn this routine very quickly. And they learn to settle when they can and turn on when they can and get the exercise when they can because they're not going to get it all day long. They're not going to have free access to exercise.
And pee quickly instead of taking 20 minutes to pee.
Yeah, our dogs pee like that.
You're going back in the car.
Yeah.
When we first got into dogs and started going to classes, we lived in Pasadena, 10 minutes from the training school that we went to. And my boredom barker, who was an everything barker, would bark the entire car ride. And I had not yet figured out how to fix that. We didn't have crates in the car. We had a very small car at the time. Anyway, it was very difficult to deal with. And I just didn't know what I was doing at the time. We moved an hour and a half away, but we're still going to classes once a week for a while. And the first time she tried to start barking, she barked for about 20 minutes and then she decided it wasn't worth it anymore. Then the next time she barked for 5 and she just learned this is going to be a long time. It is not worth this level of barking. Fortunately, it wasn't a small jump. We didn't go from 10 minutes away to 20 minutes away to 30 minutes away for her to just ramp up her barking. It was such a huge jump. She was like, never mind. And she just stopped doing it.
Yeah. And you have to be patient and be able to ignore it. That's hard for a lot of people. Don't acknowledge it all. No, don't even fling your head back to look, unless it sounds like your dog's hurting or something. Yeah, I think if you need more individualized help, contact us because we help a lot of people with this and we can give you a more step-by-step plan. In fact, I'm thinking this might even be an interesting nose work challenge is like the Calm Crate Challenge. That might be interesting. And it might be something a lot of people need. Because it's something our students need and we work them through that. But I know a lot of people who their dogs scream and whine and scratch at the crate door the entire time. Like I'm in a class with them and I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, why don't they fix this?
Right. Well, and it's embarrassing for the person owning the dog. I'm sure it's embarrassing for their instructor and it's embarrassing for everyone who's sitting there being frustrated by it, but not wanting to do anything.
Yeah. And like, you can't help them. You can't say, let me help you. One, because you can't help them in that moment. It's like a long-term kind of choice to change. And it's just going to make things worse. They're going to feel more embarrassed. They're probably going to react aggressively towards you. So, yeah.
Yeah. Dave mentioned, going back to the last thing, that Nathan Hall did an anecdotal study where pugs outperformed GSDs in a detection task. And some people were then suggesting that might have to do with the shorter space between the front of their nose and their olfactory lobe in their brain. But who really knows?
We'd have to do a neurological study to see if the signals were actually traveling faster.
Yeah.
And being processed faster. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you have so many downsides with pugs.
Yeah.
Not going to start using them in the police department.
Yeah. Okay. Question 8. I'd like to ask about the running drill. I understand how it works for faster dogs. Is it primarily for those dogs, or does it benefit slower dogs as well? Good question. For those of you who don't know the running drill, it's on Patreon. You can look it up. We have tons of videos showing us doing the running drill itself. The running drill has kind of evolved. It's not just about running anymore. It's about all sorts of distractions. But basically what it is trying to run your dog past a hide by just moving quickly, not dragging them past the hide, but just moving quickly to try to get the dog to run past the hide, and eventually the dog slows down on their own. In fact, there's a question later that's kind of about this. So, oh wait, where is that? You didn't add it here. Okay, it's Holly's question.
Okay, I'll find it.
Yeah. So anyways, this kind of is also an answer to Holly's question. So look that up as well, but we'll answer it directly here too. So there is a value for slower dogs. So there's a couple values. One is that just because the dog's slower doesn't mean they're paying attention. So the running drill is more about teaching a dog to pay attention than it is teaching them to slow down. Although oftentimes for 90% of dogs, paying attention means slowing down. Okay.
And it may just look differently for them.
Yeah. So a lot of slower dogs have trouble with the running drill. And the only way they could be having trouble with the running drill is because they're not paying attention. It might be because they're really soft. But in my experience, there's some amount of food that overcomes the softness. So if we increase, like my rant said, if you increase the payout, then you fix that problem too. But oftentimes what you'd be surprised about with slow dogs is sometimes they're demotivated because nose work is boring to them because you haven't made it challenging enough. And when you add this kind of challenge, they actually speed up because they start getting more interested. Mm-hmm. And so it can actually bring the speed up of a slow dog and the speed down of a fast dog.
It can optimize the speed.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So to give you a picture of how we came up with this drill to begin with, it was with some of our original nosework students back in the day. When we were doing classes out of our house in Pear Blossom, and our living room where we had classes had a door on one side and on the other side.
So a back door and a front door essentially, but they were right on the up. It was a small living room.
Directly across from each other. And we had a line of boxes or whatever through the room. And so if your dog missed it, you had to go out the back door, all the way around the front of the house and back in the front door again. And so that long time, all of that energy you're wasting because you skipped it is why it works. Yes. And so you really have to, like you'll see in the infographic, or you'll see, if you watch videos of it, you can't just turn around and go back down the line.
Yes.
You have to go out and around and start at box number 1 again to really get the benefit of it.
I've been doing this exercise a lot recently in my workshops, and it's been really fun. And everyone thinks, oh, my dog won't do it, or my dog's going to have trouble, or this and that. And we did once recently where we had a kitchen, and there were 2 doors to the kitchen on either side of the long kitchen. Okay. So door over here, and a long wall. And so they could go in and out of the room like this. And it was a blast. And we did it as a threshold drill. So they were working on the threshold of the door.
And I've done it that as a threshold drill as well, where I didn't have 2 doors in the room, but I created sort of a fake wall with like X pens and chairs and various objects. And so they would come in one end of that and work down the line. And if they skipped it, they had to come out and around and restart at the same place. You don't have to do it as a row of boxes or buckets. You can make it creative and interesting and work on thresholds or detailing or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. So to answer Holly's question, which is it there yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So what strategies do you use to train a dog to slow down in competition, to search more deeply and with greater care? This is the drill. Look up the running drill on Patreon. And if you can't find everything, message me and I'll try to curate a list for you. But we have lots, and we did it starting from scratch with catfish, but basically don't try to slow them down, try to rush them. Do the opposite of what you think you should do, and you'll get the result you want.
There are also some dogs that I'm sure you've seen that they are moving quickly, and the handler's moving quickly, and you think it's dog led, and then you realize that the handler is pushing the dog to go faster and faster. And if you can just get the handler to rein themselves in, the dog doesn't actually want to go that fast. And there are also other exercises we've done in classes where we've taken like walls or fences or different things where we set a hide, run the dog, move it a little bit, run them again, move it a little bit, run them again. So, and it's all sort of in this tight area, and it gets the dog really slowing down and detailing because there's a lot of residual and lingering right there. And it's all within a fairly tight space, and that can really help the dog search deeply instead of rushing through.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know if you have any follow-up questions about that. But
or if anybody else has any like favorite exercises in that vein,
sure,
put them in the comments.
Absolutely, that's a good point. So I'm not sure if this is the best. We've got 2 more questions left, and then we'll call it a day.
And there was I'll add it, and you can see if we have time for it.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure if this is the best place to comment. Can you discuss the difference in the strength of odor or odor threshold between AKC and NACSW? If people want to compete in both, how do you suggest going about that? Good question. We actually did a video on creating odor that's really terrible.
The problem is you can't hear.
The mic didn't work properly, and so it's like if you watch it with headphones. Like if we had caught it on mic, it would have been perfect. Oh, someone's calling Natalie.
No, it stopped.
Okay. So there's an explanation because we make an AKC kit and an NACSW kit. Yeah, we did.
Oh.
Yeah, I insisted on it.
Okay.
So anyways, the AKC odor, each Q-tip has 2 drops on it.
And they only set 1 Q-tip per hide.
Correct. Sorry. So popular.
No, it's the same person.
In NACSW odor, they take a dropper full or 2 around the outside of a jar. Then put a bunch of Q-tips in, or put a bunch of Q-tips in first. Either way, but it's around the wall. Screw the top on, shake, let it cook for a few days. Okay. So that's a vastly different quantities of odor. AKC is obviously stronger.
Massively stronger. And you can even tell with our not that great nose, if you put a tin with one and a tin with the other, it's dramatically different.
Yeah. And there are other ways of scenting too. So I know a lot of people in UKC, and I know that there was a document on the Fenzi site that advocated this method of scenting where you take a cotton ball, drop a drop of odor on it, put that in the jar. So that's even like a whole order of magnitude less.
Basically just vapor on all of the Q-tips. No Q-tips really that actually have oil on them. Whereas like NACSW, it's some odor, some oil, but more vapor. And then AKC, obviously it's a massive amount of oil.
So for those wanting to compete, there's a couple rules of thumb. One is variety is good. Training with different varieties is better. There's a limit, though, of how low you should be willing to go, because at a certain point, the odor is the same amount as a pooling, right? Or the same amount, the same as pooling of a higher concentration. And there shouldn't be an upper limit necessarily, but you shouldn't do really, really odor bombs too regularly. Then the second thing...
So a lower limit might be, depending on your venue, something like... 1 Q-tip of NACSW.
Yeah, one. I wouldn't go myself. I won't go below 1 Q-tip of NACSW odor personally.
If you were doing UKC, you would need to go lower than that.
Yeah. Now, the second thing is rather than seeing which like is better or how do you like, I want you to understand the pros and cons. So the less odor is present, the more the dog has to focus on hunting for that odor. Right. And the smaller pools of odor are going to be, they're not big pools. Okay. The larger the quantity of odor, oftentimes the dog doesn't have to hunt very hard because the odors filled the entire room very quickly, but the dog has to work harder at sourcing. Okay. And there are going to be lots of big pools of odor. So for those reasons, I personally prefer to train with larger quantities of odor more regularly. So I tend to train with AKC odor. In fact, I almost exclusively train with AKC odor.
But wouldn't you say that not having to hunt is a distinct con?
Just use a bigger search area.
Well, not everyone has access to bigger search areas.
That's what I do. I train big search areas with large odor. And so there's huge blank areas, and I do blank searches to increase the dog's hunt drive. So that's my back door, is to do blank searches and large search areas. So that works really well for me.
Yeah.
That's how they do it in hunting. It's a gigantic source of odor, way more than AKC odor as a whole bird. But it's 20 acres of field that you have to look for it.
I probably do a little bit more variety. I don't really, if my dog or my students' dogs are competing in both, I want them to be very, very conversant in both, and not really have any trouble switching back and forth. I think, when AKC first started, some people jumped in without really putting their dogs on that level of odor and then discovered that their dog was taking a really long time to work it out, or just false stinging and pooling odor, fringing and pooling odor. So you definitely need to train for what you're going to do. But I don't know. I don't personally know, and there aren't studies, so it's hard to say. I don't know that that it's a great thing to do really strong odor all the time.
It is. Speaking as someone who's worked through a fringing alert problem, serious fringe alert problem with Lumi, it held us back from our NW3 for years. I can tell you that this was one of the things that overcame that. So personally, I think that training with larger quantity of odors just makes your dog sourcing that much more solid for competition, provided your dog has a strong foundation in hunting. If your dog's not hunting, then you need to go back to hunt drive exercises.
Yeah, probably. But I think like Lumi's criteria confusion had a lot to do with how she was started and different things. I think
it was too low of a quantity of odor.
That might have been part of it, but I think there wasn't clear criteria for her or you. And so It took a while to work that out.
Probably. Yeah.
And she also thought that anywhere someone else had drooled was a source that she should get paid for.
Which is easier to do if the drool can overshadow a very small quantity of odor. The larger the quantity of odor, the more at least mixed of a picture the dog gets, in my opinion. So yeah, take what you hear and figure out what works for you.
A follow-up question from the same person. Were you going to read that one?
I was going to just double check there weren't any other follow-ups. Okay. Next question was, can you discuss the use of gun oil versus essential oil in scent work sports? Overseas, very popular trainers suggest that essential oils are a neurotoxin and that gun oil is safer. Okay. NACSW claims otherwise. There aren't really any good scientific research articles to either point.
To be honest, I know nothing about gun oil.
Yeah, I mean, everything causes cancer today. Everything's dangerous. Personally, even if it is a neurotoxin, I don't care. Dogs don't live long enough to show the effects of it, as far as I can see, in the levels they're being exposed to.
Yeah, I mean, the sample size we have from nosework dogs for the last, 13 years or whatever, it's tens of thousands, probably between 20 and 30,000 dogs. It's a gigantic sample size.
Yeah.
Way bigger than what we see in, even the studies that might exist on some things.
And I know for a fact that essential oils are safer than explosives and narcotics. So
if it was an issue for the dogs, I think we would have seen quite a bit of that cropping up by now.
Yeah.
And we haven't. And I think it would also, everybody wants what's best for their dogs. It would be, the data would be out there like wildfire. So I think that we can, at least, with the information we have now, we can feel confident that we're not doing
not to mention,
damage.
Keep in mind, people are using some of these essential oils outside of nosework for aromatherapy with dogs.
Well, and that's where the concern is coming in.
I haven't even heard
dogs have died.
Have they?
Yeah.
From allergies, right?
No. So it's usually tea tree oil, which is not one of the ones used for nosework. And it's usually the only ones I'm aware of has been in a diffuser. And diffusers let out a lot of odor over a lot of time into the air, and it's heated.
Dogs have died?
Mm-hmm.
How many?
I can send it to you.
Okay. Post that article.
Michael doesn't follow Facebook.
Some people will want to know this research. So I want to know how many dogs have died and how they know that it was from the oil.
Probably a lot of you have seen it because it was on Facebook. And it's, they may have said it was the oil and it may not be. It's hard to say. But I have found a number of things on tea tree oils, effects on dogs of it, causing problems. But there does seem to be good evidence that oil in a diffuser is significantly more dangerous for both dogs and people. Like they even tell people if you're putting oil in a diffuser so you've got a lot coming out and it's heated, that, you should limit to yourself to like 30 minutes because it can cause bad effects, to us larger. So.
Okay. What if you're being exposed to these oils on a regular basis? Someone has to handle these oils.
That's different than like, making it so that you're breathing in tons of it and getting it into your lungs.
So it's not a problem if you drop it on your skin, just if you breathe it.
It's more of a problem breathing it. Well, no, it depends on what you look at. So
how do they know that? Okay. I need to see the studies personally. I think if this were a bigger thing, I don't know. I'm just one of those people that
most of the issues.
I'm a skeptic of everything.
Yeah. Most of the issues are ingestion and topical application with the various essential oils. And they put like the Nosework oils on these lists, but I couldn't find anything of them actually doing any harm. I think that's more out of an abundance of caution that they're on the list. And again, we have a really big sample size where we're not seeing issues. So I'm personally not worried about the safety for our dogs in the way we're using it in Nosework. Now, don't let your dogs into your birch stash and let them drink it.
I do things that are way more dangerous than Nosework with my dogs. So honestly, my dogs are more likely to be killed during herding, doing agility, doing hunting than they are by Nosework. And if I'm not worried about those things, then I'm not worried about Nosework.
Certainly. I mean, but we've taken precautions like we don't herd cattle.
Yeah. Or just walking down the street. Your dog's more likely to be attacked and killed by some neighbor dog than doing Nosework odor.
That's
true.
Like
statistically, right? Or a car.
True. But the ingestion of essential oils is something to be careful of. So really, if you have oils in your home, don't leave them where they can be eaten. Because that would be, that would be a lot of oil to be, taken into the system. So do be careful with that. That's very different than, hunting for a little bit of oil on Q-tips that they're not eating. Okay.
One more question, I think.
Yes.
If you have two dogs at the same Nosework level, is there a benefit to entering both dogs for the draw? Yes, there is an advantage. The advantage is twice as likelihood of being drawn. The disadvantage,
unless they've changed the draw system again.
Yeah, maybe they have. But the disadvantage is that both dogs could be drawn, and you have to choose. But in my opinion, that's a better disadvantage.
Problem.
Yeah, exactly. So I always enter every dog that can get into a trial, and then either fate picks what dog I run, or I get to pick which dog I run, which is great.
Yeah. At one point, I don't think they have changed. At one point, they were talking about changing it so that just handlers are in and drawn, and then you can pick whatever dog you want. Because, like, if someone's entering 5 dogs and someone else is entering 1, the person entering 5 has a lot better chances.
That would be nice.
I don't think they've made that change. I think that at this point, if you enter 5 dogs, you do have a better chance than someone who's only entering 1.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all of our questions. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any other questions or follow-up questions, make sure to mention it to us. Let us know what challenges you'd like to see in the upcoming Nosework challenges. And I guess anything else we need to say? Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. I can't believe that at our next NAMIT will basically be New Year.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Wait, we're not doing one in December?
That is,
okay.
December and then New Year's like the next day. But I think, let me pull up the calendar because I think
we have to change the date.
It might be the holiday. So New Year's Eve is Tuesday. New Year's Day is Wednesday. So that's already January. So maybe we should do it Monday the 30th of December.
Oh, of December. It's normally on Monday?
No, it's normally on Wednesday. But Wednesday will be January, and the Wednesday before is Christmas.
Yeah. We could do 23rd or 30th.
Okay.
Maybe we'll put a poll up.
I think we should just.
Do you guys prefer Monday or Wednesday? Comment in the comments below.
Well, there's no Wednesday we can do.
We could do the 18th.
If we want to do it really early.
Yeah.
If anyone has a really strong preference for a Monday or Wednesday in December, put it out there. And
it's either going to be the 18th, the 23rd, or the 30th. So let us know what you think, and we will post in the next week about what the official date will be.
We'll put it in the newsletter.
Oh yeah, I got to do a newsletter.
Not yet. It's only the 27th.
Oh my gosh, it's the 27th already? Oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. Okay.
All right. Have a
Thank you
lovely
guys so much. Hope you
Thanksgiving.
enjoyed that. And
Let's just real quick make sure there weren't any other comments.
start at sending more questions for next month's NAMA.
Yes.
If you haven't already, it's very helpful to get those questions in early if we can.
Yeah. Then we know if we have enough.
Okay. See you guys.
All right.